Hello, I'm Tim Rogers. You are watching Kotaku.com, and today I would like to talk about the Sony PlayStation 5, namely my predictions and wishes. And predictions and wishes are two different things. Sometimes it's hard to draw the line. We're going to be drawing the line today, right here. Recently, Sony announced some details about the PlayStation 5. For example, they announced that it's called the PlayStation 5, which surprises nobody. It surprised me a little bit because I was thinking maybe they're going to do something different. I'm always expecting people to do something different. They didn't do anything different. They announced a bunch of details about the PlayStation 5. Nothing really too relevant or concrete. They announced some stuff about the controller. They announced that they're making a different UI. They said nothing about what the UI actually was going to look like. However, when I saw this news story on my Twitter, when I saw Sony reveals PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 controller, I was like, I felt real dumb because I've been planning to do a video for like a year now. I have been planning to do a video that is my predictions and wishes for the PlayStation 5. And I looked at my calendar and I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this video before it becomes irrelevant for me to do it. Because doing a video is a lot more than just standing in front of a camera or sitting in front of a microphone and talking for me. I have to research and write a script. I have to fact check things. I have to get illustrations and screenshots and video clips. So I don't know if I'm going to have time to do that before Sony formally announces the PlayStation 5, which is probably going to be E3, maybe before E3. Who knows? I just know that I probably don't have time. And another complicating factor is I'm literally developing a game called Truck Heck right now. And it's going to come out on the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox One, the PC, and I'm assuming the PlayStation 5. Now, I am a registered Sony PlayStation developer. However, I know nothing about the PlayStation 5. I have not been briefed on it yet. I've signed an NDA to not reveal things I do know about Sony. However, I'm not violating the NDA if I tell you things I don't know. With my perspective as a video game developer and as a person who makes videos on the internet about video games, I would like to reveal to you my list of predictions and wishes for the PlayStation 5, which I have in a note here on my iPhone called PlayStation 5. And I have been keeping this list jokingly while playing PlayStation 4 games for the last 2.5 years. And it's full of insults for things I find frustrating about the PlayStation 4, that the idea would be that I would make a video about what they should do for the PlayStation 5 and it would start with me listing relevant things and then kind of just devolve into me jabbing tiny interface quibbles. So rather than go through the grand exotic gesture of actually writing that into a script, I'm gonna write the script live for you as I look at this document. I'm doing this because, again, if I don't, when am I ever gonna do this? If I don't do it right now, right? Think about that thing in your life that if you don't do it right now, you're never gonna do it. I didn't even put my glasses on because of how urgently I want to do this. Again, there's always that one guy in the comments who goes, skip to this part if you want it to get to the actual list. I will be deleting every version of that comment I see because without the justification I just gave, the disclaimer that this is all gonna be loose, spammy, weird, dumb, insignificant, yet still important to me stuff, what's really the point of watching the video? Come on, let's get started. Okay, so the first suggestion I have, and this is the first thing, when they announced that the name of it was the PlayStation 5, I thought, God darn it. I was hoping they would do something wild. I was hoping they would do something weird. I was hoping they would just call it PlayStation. Just call it PlayStation. It's the new PlayStation. Allow the consumer to own the branding experience colloquially. People saying to their friends at GameStop, dude, that new PlayStation's coming out. Or, bro, that new PlayStation is right around the corner. Or, yo, I'm saving up my money for that PlayStation, right? That PlayStation, the new PlayStation. When kids come in to GameStop to ask about 2K, they ask if GameStop has got that 2K or that Madden. So if around the release of this would-be PlayStation 5, it were just called the PlayStation, kids would be coming in with a stack of bills and they'd go, you got that PlayStation? Or y'all got that PlayStation? We don't have to call it the PlayStation PlayStation 5. Also, if you just call it the PlayStation, you can surreptitiously upgrade it every year with a slightly faster processor. Treat it like a cheap gaming PC. I don't know, they should have just called it the PlayStation. That's my top level pitch. Any companies out there in need of a branding consultant, I have a reasonable hourly rate. I can give you stuff just like that. Number 2, they gotta quit it with the blue. The boxes have that bright blue stripe at the top, and it is a nice, lovely shade of blue. And it is clearly chosen by a team of branding strategists and product designers and graphic designers. Clearly the work of a god-darn team of world-class individuals. However, the Xbox is green and the Nintendo Switch is red. So on a shelf, it looks almost as though these 3 teams of product designers, these world-class people, it almost looks as though these 3 console manufacturers are in god-darn cahoots. And what I think is, Sony needs to break up the cahootage. They need to bust the, whatever it is, it's not really trust busting. See, if I would have made some sort of trust busting or Zaibatsu reference if I'd had time to fact check and Wikipedia it. I think they should ditch the blue, go back to the PlayStation 2 era black stripe at the top, and have it say, again, it would have just said PlayStation, though now it's going to say PlayStation 5. I still think they should go with a black stripe, not a blue stripe. And then when I turn the console on, instead of that shocking blue background blasting me the way it does now, which it's way too bright because TVs now are literally 100 times brighter than they were god darn 10 years ago. Instead of that super huge bright blue background, make it a nice, gentle charcoal gray. Look at Dragon Quest's interface where it's white, the Japanese interface, not the American one with the sepia tone beige, parchment, tea-stained paper background. I'm talking like this really nice, luxurious charcoal gray with this off-white font on it. That's what it should look like. Ditch the blue. Just ditch the blue. Maybe make the console blue. Nobody's really gonna miss the blue, for God's sake. So that's what I'm thinking. Stand apart. Bust the cahoots. Next item, I predict, this is not a wish. Those previous 2 were wishes, one of which we know is not gonna come true. This is a prediction. We're gonna see 4K 60 FPS as a buzzword. Maybe not 60 FPS, because maybe you won't be able to run all the games in 60 FPS, but the games will be 4K. And I point this out because I have seen in so many Kotaku posts and so many advertisements and Subway advertisements, I have seen the way Sony is promoting the PlayStation 4 Pro. And it's god-darn shameful because they use the phrase 4K TV gaming and more, okay? And I'm gonna try to find an image of this. I know I've saved it as a dot ping on my desktop like 800 times because I'm gonna use that in my PlayStation 4 video, and then I wrote some quips about it. So when you call the PlayStation 4 Pro a 4K TV gaming, and there's a hyphen, it's 4K hyphen TV gaming. 4K TV gaming and more. When you call it 4K TV gaming, what you're doing is you're really kind of tipping your hand. All that Sony is really saying when they say that the PlayStation 4 Pro offers 4K TV gaming, 4K hyphen TV gaming, all that they're saying when they say that it offers 4K TV gaming is that you, the consumer, can, if you want, plug the console in to a 4K TV. They're not saying that the games are going to be in 4K. They're saying that it's possible for an HDMI cable to enter the HDMI port on the back of a 4K TV. That's all that they're saying. The majority of the games are not actually 4K. They're like a checkerboard resolution. Someone's gonna tear me apart for saying this. I'm sorry for being a video game industry veteran who's right about this stuff a lot. And if I'm not right about this, so what? The whole nature of this video is that I don't have time to write a full script or fact check it. Calling the PlayStation 4 Pro 4K TV gaming is like putting a sticker on a Hot Pocket box that says 1200 watt microwave eating. That's what that's like. It's off the top of my head. See, now I would like to fact check how many watts is a microwave. Is it 1200? Is that like the upper limit? I feel like it's like a range of 800 to 1200 watts in a microwave. So 800 watt microwave eating would be for scrubs, where 1200 watt microwave eating would be for the microwave equivalent of a PC game player. And we already know that there's no loading times. I actually had this prediction in here, and I felt like a genius when I wrote it, and then I felt like an idiot when Sony announced that they were working with engineers, rocket scientists to eradicate the menace of loading time. They announced that last year, and I was like, God darn it, I wrote that down. I'm like, that's the one thing that's like up for the goddamn guillotine is the loading times. And Sony already spilled the beans on the guillotines. They're getting rid of loading times. But I did have that in this document from 2 years ago. Just saying something about loading times. It literally says something about loading times. Ray tracing, it's a prediction. Ray tracing will be for the PlayStation 5 press conference what 1080p was for the PlayStation 3 press conference. Something they're going to talk about, and then nobody's going to really know if any of the games actually have it. And then another thing they're going to do, 120 hertz over HDMI for 1080p. They're going to offer that as an option. I know this because the Xbox One does it. Fun fact, if you have a compatible HDMI cable and a compatible port, you can do true 120 hertz. It doesn't work on almost every game, though there are games where it does work. It'll be a bullet point during the press conference at E3. Mark my words, watch this video again immediately before the E3 press conference. Kotaku.com, Stephen Totillo, whoever's in charge of posting posts, it's certainly not me, like re-upload this post the day before Sony's press conference, because we're gonna see, just see how right I am. By the way, it is October 22nd, 2019 right now. Let's move on to the next section. This is a wish. I don't want the PlayStation 5 to lecture me when the console doesn't shut down correctly. I don't like that ugly 480p screen that says the console was not shut down correctly. Get rid of that. On the startup screen, just have some fine print that says, make sure you always shut the console down. You just do that. Like, I don't know. I don't like that ugly screen that's like you jagweed, you didn't unplug, you unplugged it, you yanked the cord out, you punk, you loser. It's all Mr. Rossetti. It's very upsetting to see that, especially seeing it every goddamn day, because you never know what's happening. You know, kids chewing on the power cable or whatever. Now I want to talk about the controller. Sony has already announced that the controller will use USB-C, in my document, by the way, that it'll use USB-C. And also they have said that it's going to have, I don't know what they're calling it, active triggers. It says it has active triggers, so the triggers offer force feedback. That's also in my document from 2 years ago, because I was predicting that they were going to rip off the Xbox One impulse triggers, except the Sony style of ripping it off, where they add a little bit, and it's a little bit too much, so that it ends up being kind of janky. 6-axis. They're going to do that with their triggers, except maybe it's going to be good. So the analog sticks can offer different levels of resistance based on like in-game events and the surface. Like the analog stick is looser when you're on ice or whatever. That's all really cool. Though that sounds like a lot of information being sent over a Bluetooth signal, which I suppose is why they're using USB-C. And they've already mentioned in the Wired magazine article, where they revealed all of these details, that the controller will run wired out of the box, which was a feature that the PlayStation 4 didn't have. You could plug the controller in and play a game, though it was on Bluetooth, and the cord was just charging the controller's battery. The inputs were still being sent over Bluetooth. They later added an ability to play over the cable, because the dev kit always had that. I don't know if I'm under NDA to not talk about the dev kit at all. The dev kit always had the ability to plug in and play. I think it sounds like a nightmare to add all of this stuff to a Bluetooth controller, because ostensibly, it's not the right word in this situation, ostensibly, wireless video game controllers do not exist yet. They just don't. There is so much lag on a video game controller, especially a PlayStation 4 controller over Bluetooth. There is just a monstrous amount of lag. I feel like video game developers don't hate on this quite enough. And of course, the players of the games are never going to comment on it because it makes them sound weak. So I'll say it right now. I am weak. And the PlayStation 4 controllers have mondo amounts of Bluetooth lag. It's disgusting amounts of Bluetooth lag. I refuse to play with a non-wired controller. Here's how bad it is. And I know because I developed a 4-player game for the PlayStation 4. And when you have 4 players playing with 4 controllers, sending all these signals over Bluetooth, it's just a goddamn nightmare salad for that console to interpret all of these things. Every controller is listening for so much information from the console, and every controller is sending so much information. You've got the touchpad which has like 1 million points of articulation on it. And you've got the vibration motors that are listening for feedback from the game. You've got the light bar, you've got the controller speaker, analog stick movement, which is very nuanced. It's not just a 1 or a 0, it's a matrix of things. You've got all the buttons, you've got analog triggers. There's a lot of information being sent over the Bluetooth, and people are like, oh, it can probably handle it. And it's like, I guess it can. However, it only handles it up to a goddamn point. So here's what I'm suggesting is lighten the load of the goddamn controller a little bit. Ditch the light bar, just ditch it. I like it, okay? My video game, the light bar changes color to show like which team you're on, and we have like 16 color palettes in the game, and it changes to perfectly match the color palette. It gets the exact RGB value. I love that sort of stuff. I love the controller speaker. Who doesn't have fond memories of freaking out the first time they heard a goddarn something come out of the controller speaker? I mean, maybe it's not the fondest or greatest memory, though. The controller making noise is hilarious, fundamentally. Now, being able to plug in some headphones to the controller, that's good. I like that. Keep that. That's the one feature you should prop up, is being able to plug in headphones with a microphone. I think you get rid of the light bar, get rid of the speaker, get rid of the touchpad. Let's face it, the touchpad has only ever been the biggest select button in history. No one actually uses it as a mouse, and I feel like if there's backward compatible PS4 games, they've done this in the past when they put PlayStation 1 games on the PSP, which only has one set of bumpers and no triggers. They burned games. They burned features by being like, oh, there's no L2 and R2 button, well, whatever, deal with it. And they shoehorn in some retrofitted controls. They will gladly burn any deeper touchpad, light bar, or speaker functionality. And I think they should. There's 2 reasons they should. Well, there's probably a lot more than 2 reasons they should. Number 1 is, get rid of the touchpad and let's add a bunch of buttons in the middle of the controller. That sounds cynical and stupid. I want you to just back up for a second. When Nintendo announced the Wiimote back in 2006, people's heads lit on fire because Nintendo confidently stated, this is how we're gonna get grandma to play a video game, by giving her a controller that looks kind of like a TV remote and has one big button on it. I think it's a little bit insulting, and I think that games for more hardcore likers of video games, they don't lie about the fact that if you've ever seen a controller schematic on screen with all the buttons, they don't beat around the bush too much in declaring that a video game controller is pretty much a fetish object at this point. You might as well put a couple more buttons in the middle of the controller. Put 2 select buttons. Think of some clever name to call them. Maybe make a screenshot button. I remember gamers being really cynical about the PlayStation 3 when they revealed that there's a button called the PlayStation button. I remember video game players on the video game forum that I frequented the most being ultra cynical about it.
What is this for? The PlayStation button? How dumb. Brands, am I right?
And then I remember similar people being similarly cynical about the share button. The share button rules. I love the share button. I think we should actually have another share button. Have a screenshot button. Maybe even make 2 share buttons, a screenshot button and a video clip button. Maybe that's ridiculous. Maybe there's a share clip button that if you hold it down for a couple seconds, it records like a 30-second video clip. That's what the Nintendo Switch share button does. So must be a good idea. Those guys are eating your lunch, Sony. Millions and millions of dollars they're getting every, I think it's something like the Nintendo Switch is making $16 million per second. I can't fact check that because I'm on the spot. Okay, I had written a sentence. There's just a big, chubby roast turkey of stuff sliding down a skinny pipe of Bluetooth, jittering, stalling, and stopping as it chuckles along. I guess that's about the Bluetooth thing. We're not gonna, that's, okay. Make the controller pair with very predictable behavior. I wanna know exactly how to pair the controller. I never wanna Google, how do I pair my controller ever again? And I know someone's gonna call me a loser. Though man, when you are developing a 4-player online multiplayer game with 4 PlayStation dev kits and 16 controllers in one office, Pairing a controller is a nightmare. You don't know which PlayStation is going to turn on when you press the button. People are like, oh, color code them. It's like, oh, okay. Well, sometimes I have to take a controller over to another one, and it just gets confused. And I know that's not what the industry refers to as the typical use case. Though at the very least, I don't think you would cry if you could plug the controller into the PlayStation, press the PlayStation button, and then unplug it, and it's just synced. I don't think anyone... Maybe there's some FCC regulation that is being violated by not asking the player, do you want to connect this device to this console? Maybe there's some sort of elaborate labyrinthine excuse for them to not make it easy. There's something tells me there's not, because the Xbox sure doesn't have a problem with it. Somebody at Sony should buy an Xbox One and try it out. Xbox One X. Try it out. You might like it. Also, those controllers, they use some sort of wireless standard. I don't think it's Wi-Fi direct. Beautiful. Almost lag-free. I still play wired, of course. Also, the controllers vibrate when you plug them in. Like, you plug it in and it just gives a little thump. Make the PlayStation 5 controller do that. This is the big one. This is a prediction, not a wish. I'm predicting this of both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox 2, or whatever the Xbox 2 is called. I'm predicting this with my head. I want rear paddles on the controller. I want paddles on the back that I can twiddle with my middle finger. I can hit bumpers with my index finger. I can hit triggers with my middle finger, and then paddles with my ring finger. That's what I want. If you're thinking paddles are for like the Xbox One Elite controller, or for Scuff Vantage controllers, or these Elite $200 controllers, let me just beg you to reconsider. Imagine if you could jump in a first-person shooter without taking your finger off the analog stick that you're using to look, without having to do the claw grip where you're pressing a button like this and twiddling the analog stick like this. It's goddamn tendinitis in a soup can, is what that is. So imagine you could just twiddle your ring finger to jump. Now, my Xbox One Elite controller, I have 4 paddles on, and I can't imagine not playing Dark Souls with 4 paddles for block and roll, and there's a couple other things. I have my Estus flask on one of those. Basically, I can't imagine not using them. And I know that you might think they're for pro gamers or whatever. Trust me, if you had one and you tried it, you would like it. I know people who own an Xbox One Elite controller and say they have never tried the paddles. That is wild, because paddles are in such a better position for your fingers to touch than shoulder buttons are. They're in a much better position than analog stick clicks are. I think you shouldn't ever have to click an analog stick. I don't like doing it. It feels weird. Running while clicking an analog stick, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like sliding a toy car around with like a chopstick. It feels weird. I don't like it. So what I want, and what I predict, is that nonchalantly Sony is going to add 2 rear paddles. Not 4, they're going to add 2 to the back of the PlayStation 5 controller. And they're going to be pretty heavy to pull. They're not going to be hair triggers. They're going to involve an audible tactile click. And Sony's going to do this the way, Sony has innovated a lot in the past. Full disclosure, I used to work for Sony Computer Entertainment Japan during the PlayStation 2 era. We won't talk about what I did, because what I did was dangerous. And I don't want to compromise anybody's cover. I worked there during the iToy. The iToy was like a Nintendo Wii or a Microsoft Kinect or a DS on your TV, where you just move your hand, and there were these really fun little mini games where you can move stuff around. Sony's done a lot of innovation. It's just stuff has come out half-baked, and then somebody else bakes it the rest of the way for them. Case in point, PlayStation Vita had that rear touch panel where you twiddle your fingers on a rear touch screen and you can affect stuff that's on the front screen. Sony's going to present the paddles. People are going to give them guff about it, though people like me are going to be like, you can kind of see that they already sort of ran with that idea kind of a long time ago. So make them mappable. Don't even make them, do not make them required of anything, because that's or do. I don't know. If in Uncharted I could, or if in Call of Duty I could run with the left paddle and jump with the right paddle, that's all I need. Just, do that. And then make the clicking the analog stick something else. I still like clicking the right analog stick for stabbing people, because it feels good to go through an awkward motion in the physical world when doing something triumphant in the virtual world. Talk about that in the comments. Also, I hope you're all just commenting feverishly while you let this video play, and you're just talking about your own predictions for the PlayStation 5, so that then you can reply to yourself like, Oh my God, he said it. Oh my God. So just, be feverishly typing at all times. And then the other thing, Sony, I know you picture yourselves as the game company of the people, though you should release, you want to be like affordable, the everyman console. I think you should make an Elite controller. You should make an officially licensed Elite controller and sell it optional. And I say this for the same reason I say to put paddles on there, because billions of dollars are made inside the video game industry. Billions of dollars are made alone by games where you have to click the left analog stick to run, and games that you play competitively online. Might as well make a nice Elite controller with some paddles, and then a regular controller with some paddles. Paddles, 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 paddles. Come on. All I want to do is talk about paddles now. In conclusion, to this particular bullet point, not to the video, you'll notice there is definitely some time left. In conclusion, it's good. Next point is content creation. PlayStation 4 had a share button. I want to evolve that further on the PlayStation 5. And what I want is, if not 4K, at least give me a 1080p 60 FPS clip. 60 FPS. That way I could make my YouTube videos about games so much more easily. It's so easy to stitch together a video of hot moments and funny pratfalls when you're able to just record 60 seconds at a time whenever something good happens, and then you pop the clip into Adobe Premiere and you just chop off the beginning of it and you just drag it back to where the good moment starts, because you know that you took the clip right on the good moment right after it was over, and then you can just line those up in your video. It's just content creation made easy. I want Sony to make my job easy, because if they make my job easy, they turn it into a hobby for you. And you're just going to end up with better content. You're going to end up with people selling your games better. Again, I have a reasonable consulting rate. Call me up. My Twitter DMs are open. PlayStation follows me on Twitter. My DMs doesn't even matter if they're open or not. I follow you, you follow me. Let's go. Maybe there should be a streaming button on the controller. You just press the button to start streaming. You have your credentials popped in there, press a button and you start streaming. Find a way to put the chat on the screen that's not obtrusive to me, because the PS4's streaming interface looks kind of like, it looks open source. I'll leave it at that. It looks like somebody made it in like a computer lab. Like, again, no offense. No offense, it's bad. At the very least, the one thing I know streamers want, when I launch a video game, if HDCP, high definition copy protection, is turned on, just turn it off for me. Don't launch up a screen that says, turn off HDCP to play this app. It's like, man, I literally 100% stopped using my PlayStation 4 as my Netflix device because of that. Because you have to turn HDCP on to watch Netflix, and you have to turn it off to play a game. Just turn it off for me. I don't understand why you don't turn it off for me. The Xbox turns it on and off for me. Is the Xbox a narc that's doing stuff behind the scenes? Duh. So is the PlayStation. Don't think that this one instance of unnarchism doesn't make you continue to be a narc elsewhere. Next one, menu music. I wrote a lot about the menu music. I turned the menu music off on my PlayStation 4. And quite frankly, I wouldn't trust someone who leaves it turned on. I would tell you, if I went to your house and you turned your PlayStation on and you were like, bro, let's play some Crash Bandicoot collection or whatever. And I'm like, heck yeah, because I love that freaky Bandicoot. That guy's hilarious. And you turned it on and that music was playing, I would leave very quietly and call the police. Because that music's weird. No, the only reason I have so many notes about the music is we have the music turned on the PlayStation in the office because it gives us volume reference when we're setting up a recording or a stream, and I understand that, and I forgive that. Though it sure has made me contemplate that music on the tree of woe, as it were. The tree of woe is, never mind. Here's what I say about the menu music. Sony, for the PlayStation 5, make better menu music or turn it off by default. Make better menu music and/or turn it off by default. It should be turned off by default. And by better music, I mean turn it into a thing. Make the menu music a thing. Don't make it this goddarn aromatherapy nothingness, like whatever it is that music is. Again, I'm sure you got somebody probably much more better looking than me to compose that music. I don't know who it is. I just assume that they wear clothes that fit instead of strange cowboy garments, which don't. Like, did Nintendo patent the idea of making charming menu music? It sure sounds like it. It sounds like something Ryuichi Sakamoto made in middle school. It sounds like a ghost infected a Casio keyboard. It sounds like a wizard taking a tinkle. It sounds like Gandalf filling an outhouse hole full of conjurer's chowder. That's what sorcerers call diarrhea. There's a lot more. Where that came from, spend a lot of time stewing in my own juices, as it were. Stewing in my own chunky juices about the PlayStation 4 menu music. And the sound effects are kind of ear punchers. Not as bad as the Xbox sound effects, which have been the same since Xbox 360. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Make menu music fun, like Nintendo does. There are many composers. I have a list of composers. I'm just going to read you the top two. Lena Raine, who did the music for Celeste, and Ken Coda Snyder, who did the music for, well, my game, Video Ball. There's a track in Video Ball, I'm sure if you ask Ken Coda Snyder, it's called Easy, and there's another one called Friendly. He'll license those to you. I mean, just give him like $2 million. I don't want to speak for him. Just give him like $2 million. He'll let you use those. You know who else would be good? Gabriel Gundaker. Do you all know this guy? He composed a bunch of fake Nintendo Wii Sports events songs that are really good. You should just straight up get him to do the menu music for the PlayStation 5 in the style of one of those. Or maybe not exactly in the style of one of those, though in the style of something that sounds like video game productivity, like something like that. That would be great. Okay, here's the big one, by which I mean it's one of the two big ones that are right here at the end. The goddarn store menu is a nightmare on the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 store menu is a nightmare. It is an absolute shocking nightmare. And I have a million little bullet points beneath this bullet point. There's several screens of problems I have with the store menu. If anyone out there likes the store menu, call your doctor. It's not good. I don't have time, literally, because I have to go to the bathroom, and etc. I don't have time to get into everything wrong with the store menu, so I'm just gonna give you a couple of points. Number one is I really, really, really would just like to know that a game is, in fact, downloading. I think it should be 2 button presses. 2 button presses. When I buy a game, I mean, I'm okay with there being like several confirms. Are you sure you want to spend this money? Are you sure you want to spend $50 on this game? Are you sure? I'm okay with that. Just, I want to really know that at the end of the buying process, if it says download, download all, I want to click download and then give me some feedback. Play a sound, show a splash, do something to tell me that it's downloading. Because right now it's just like, I don't know if it's downloading or not. And then I'll quit to the home screen and I don't see it there. And then I'll wait like a half an hour and I'll be like, is it there? And it doesn't show up. Sometimes it never shows up. Sometimes it shows up like an hour later. Sometimes I have to go into the library and go under purchased and find it. Don't like that. Just let me know the game's downloading. Second thing, along that left sidebar, now I was gonna look at this in preparation for this video and then I didn't have time because I'm working on a Death Stranding video. That's why I haven't shaved, because there's like a 1-second joke where I show my face in the Death Stranding video to talk about the main character's facial hair. I say, he's got worse facial hair than me. That's why I haven't shaved. So I've been working on that video and I haven't had time to think about whatever this is I'm doing right now. That's content creation, buddy. I just know there's a whole bunch of stuff along the side, because I make fun of this every time I have to watch something on Amazon Prime. You ever watch anything on Amazon Prime? It's like a goddarn garage sale. It's like my goddarn parents' living room, looking at Amazon Prime, the app on the Apple TV, because it's like, for you, your list, watch next, new, trending, popular deals on sale. It's just like confronting you with this Big Lots forest fire of nonsense. Just all these categories with just titles repeated dozens of times on each screen. And it's just like, is it a god darn user interface or is it a crossword puzzle? And the PlayStation Store menu's like just as bad. I want them to Marie Kondo that god darn list. And it is Marie Kondo, it's not Marie. I heard someone in this office say Marie Kondo. I didn't correct them because I'm not a weirdo. I don't correct people in person, I just talk about them behind their back on a video. They need to do a Marie Kondo style reorganization of that menu. And here's where we use the UI term buckets. I want big buckets. And I think you apply this, again, you're gonna have to pay me if you want more of this, and I'm sure you're already working on it, Sony. They need big buckets. So you go into the store, it should say, first of all, they can't lose their featured. There's a featured section that is for brand new stuff, deals, stuff that publishers have paid to be featured prominently. Featured, big splash. There should just be a big splash that says featured, right when you start. And then on the sidebar there's featured, makes it even more prestigious and more coveted. Featured, games, and then, you know, if it were my computer desktop, it would just say stuff. Featured, games, can't say entertainment because that makes it sound like games aren't entertainment. Really haven't thought through this. Featured, games, films, and TV. And then, so that's where you buy your games. Then you go into the games bucket and it's like, okay, at the top it's new games. Then it's search, then it's downloadable content, featured. That is the only sort of like ethical way to do this. Big buckets, I want big buckets. Less nonsense. I predict they're gonna get up on stage at E3 2020 and say, we're making it all about the games. They're gonna say something like that because there's some variation of it being all about the games now as though it were different before. They're gonna say that. Just make it all about the games. Again, some more. Big buckets. Now, for the final section, the actual interface of the console itself. A long time ago, Sony had the PSP, PlayStation 3, which had the cross-media bar, which was this platonic, idealistic envisioning of the future of desktop interfaces where all of your folders are there in a straight line and you navigate left and right and you press down to enter the folder, and it was immaculate until it started getting gunked up with all sorts of nonsense that video games required. And they require that, and I'm not complaining that video games required the gunking up with of nonsense. I'm just saying that the cross-media bar outgrew itself. And the PlayStation 4 has sort of a cross-media bar, and then it has like another bar on top of that, and then it has like another thing that you can bring up by pressing a button, and then there's the options button, which opens up a little side menu, and there's the hold down the PlayStation button for another menu. There's like a million menus just kind of sliding back and forth. Stresses me out, makes me sweat, makes me feel weird. I mean, I'll admit that I feel weird playing with it. Here's a couple of things. A couple of things I want. Number one, Sony has already, as of their most recent firmware update, ditched Facebook integration. There's no more Facebook integration on the PlayStation 4. And you know what? That's pretty good, because Facebook, I haven't used Facebook since the Messenger app started asking me to turn on notifications every time I open it. Immediately stopped using Facebook. It's been like over a year now. And you know what? I love it. They've already ditched Facebook, so they're one step closer to acknowledging that social media is kind of nonsense. I'm sure they ditched Facebook because there was some sort of security issue with their console and their security policies. Whatever, it looks nice from where I'm standing. I think they should go one step further towards social stuff. When I get my PlayStation 5 out of the box and I plug it in, every notification of every kind should be turned off by default. I should have to turn them on individually. I'm sick of some update happening and then one or two of my notification preferences being switched back to play a sound and splash a banner or whatever. I hate that stuff. That's a really petty one. I'm sorry, it's really petty. Next one, organize my goddarn stuff for me, okay? I get goddarn conniption fits when I see how messy my PlayStation 4's quote-unquote desktop is. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. It's like my parents' kitchen. It's just so much stuff. It's like my parents' bathroom. My mom goes to the supermarket and she buys, oh, this shampoo looks good. I remember this from middle school. This is how I became a Marie Kondo fan before she even existed. was my mom would just be like, oh, here's a new shampoo. And then they would put new shampoos in the bathroom. There's like 14 different types of shampoo. I went there for Christmas and I'm just like, what the heck? That's what my PlayStation feels like. The PlayStation here in this office feels like a goddarn group of rats are making a virtual nest out of malware. There's just so much, like when you open up the PlayStation 4, there's all this stuff. There's like Share Factory, Gameland, Funtown, Creation Studio, Publication Garage, or whatever. There's like a whole bunch of these pieces of narcware just flopping around. Spindly, noodly octopus tentacles all over my figurative living room floor. I don't like it. Just put all of those in a folder that's labeled like for narcs. Don't, like if you're gonna, I know that you're paying people to develop all this fancy software that I'm never gonna use. Just put it in a folder. Make it say like, from PlayStation, if you want it to sound nice. Like, I don't know, that sounds clean and nice. Now, I remember when the PlayStation 4 added folders, and it's like, now you can have folders, right? Like, that was kind of a red flag for me. It's like, why didn't it just have folders to begin with? I shouldn't have to scroll all the way over and go into like a little media library page and then like just find my games in there. It's like, oh, it's easier to find your games in the library page. It's like, why should it be easier to find the games in there? Why can't they just be in a folder labeled games? And then when I'm in the folder called games, I press the options button and I now have a list of sorting options. I can choose to sort them by genre, alphabetical order, last time played, sort of like the Nintendo Switch does. I want to be able to just sort them really fast and then dive into a folder and then arrange the contents of the folder by alphabetical order or last time played. So I can see what the last RPG I played or the first alphabetical RPG that I played was. I can just see that at a couple of button presses. I want to be able to delete games from the, I think you can't do this on the PlayStation 4. I want to be able to delete games from said game folder. I want to be able to do that. I want to press the options button and choose delete, and then it uninstalls, deletes the game. I don't want to have to go into a system menu to do that. And then when I delete the game, I want it to operate similarly to the Nintendo Switch's archive feature, where it then puts a little cloud icon and an arrow in the lower right corner. It kind of dims out the app icon so that I know I own the app. It's just, I'd have to download it if I want to play it again. Should do that. I think that would be great. I think that would be goddarn fantastic. I actually did have like a nice therapeutic moment once where I alphabetized all of my PlayStation 4 games inside of my games folder. And then I realized, kind of ridiculous that I had to do that on purpose, pick each one up and drag it into the right space. As far as I knew, there was no way to alphabetize it. And I looked. I mean, I have been a user interface designer in the past, though lately I only look for the solutions that I myself would have implemented, and I did not find one of those. So I didn't keep looking. And that's goddamn my fault. And it's also Sony's fault, though it's I want to say we're about like 70-30 on that. Big buckets, I got big buckets written here like 3 times. Okay, I have way too much stuff about that menu. Again, give me a call. Stadia, they're gonna just, Sony, they bought the company Gaikai. They have this PlayStation Now. The PlayStation Now lets you like download games the way that the Xbox Game Pass does. I think they're gonna really beef up the PlayStation Now, and they're gonna rebrand it real hard. Give it like a nice clean app icon. They're gonna give it a redesign of its product, and I think they're gonna go toe-to-toe with Stadia. And I think they're gonna try to have some sort of flagship PlayStation Now only game. And I feel like it's gonna be some sort of FMV, choose your own adventure game. They've been grooming us on stuff like Until Dawn or Man of Medan. I feel like they're going to have one of those. Something that's perfect for playing in a communal setting with streaming. It doesn't require low latency. Getting very specific here. AAA turn-based strategy game with high budget cutscenes as well also. They're just gonna have some sort of poster baby for their PlayStation Now. That's something I predict. Again, that's a prediction. Poster baby for PlayStation Now. A PlayStation Now only game. And while we're at it, I'm gonna say this. PlayStation Plus. Cloud saves should not be a PlayStation Plus feature. That is ridiculous that I need to pay $59.99 a year to transfer my save from my office PS4 to my home PS4. That's just weird, unless I want to put it on like a USB drive. Just give me the goddamn cloud saves. Make them free. And if I'm a PlayStation Plus member, this is a big one. And I know that this is probably logistically wild. This is a wish, not a prediction. Let me give my pre-owned digital games to somebody else. But let me do it once. You can limit me to doing it exactly once. You can transfer a game to someone exactly once. So like I can send my brother a game, and then he can send it back. Let me do that. Because like last year I had Red Dead Redemption 2, and I played a bunch of it on the PS4 for the purpose of my job. And then when the game actually came out, I bought it for the Xbox because I wanted the native 4K. And now it's just on my PS4 and I can't do anything with it. And I wouldn't mind being able to just gift that to somebody. So let me do it once. Let me rent games too. Let people rent games. Give people like 24 hours to rent a game. Can you not do that? I get so many games for free that I'm gonna admit I've lost touch with what the consumer experience is. I'm sorry, I actually have. I'm admitting that freely. And then here's the final point. I feel like I'm telling my mom this on a Christmas list, like I'm writing it and explaining it in a Christmas list to my mom because it's that important. I don't want Knack 3, I want Jack 4. That's not really the last one. The last one is backwards compatibility. First of all, start calling it backward compatibility. Backwards is a stupid word. Mark Cerny already said at the announcement of the PlayStation 4 that their whole deal moving forward is forward compatibility. And I mean, he used the phrase moving forward, which is the phrase narcs use. Cerny's a narc, Cerny. Sorry. Mark Cerny, more like narc Sony. It's okay that he's a narc because he's very smart. He can be a narc if he wants. He said that they're gonna be all about forward compatibility, meaning PlayStation 4 games are gonna work on the PlayStation 5, et cetera, et cetera. And that's cool. So what I want is I just want them to be as good on the PlayStation 5 as Xbox One games are on the Xbox One X. I want them to have the improved frame rates, 4K, 60, whatever. I really want that. And that's one form of backward compatibility. The other one is, and if Sony does this, and this is halfway between a prediction and a wish. Let's say it's a prediction. I'm gonna flip the coin in my head, it's a prediction. I'm predicting they're going to announce some massive PlayStation 1, 2, 3 backward compatibility store. They're gonna make it work. People have been crying for it for so long, myself included. I personally have filled several bathtubs with gravy consistency tears over the past several years because I can't just buy any PS3 game I want on the PlayStation 4's digital store. It's ridiculous that I can't. They're going to somehow have worked it out. Whether it's emulation or what, I don't care. Work it out, get them all in there. Because that's what the goddarn Xbox One does. I can play so many original Xbox games. I can play Ninja Gaiden Black in 4K 60 on my Xbox One X, and it looks beautiful. I can play Panzer Dragoon Orta. I can play Namco's Breakdown. I can play so many games on the Xbox One X, and it's just really weird that I can't download any PS2 game that comes to mind. And I mean, maybe don't start with all of them, start with a lot of them. Just do it, like, come on. I mean, that's not even any kind of a joke. It's just, it's wild that they don't have that. And that, I believe, Sony, if that's something Sony announces at the PlayStation 5 press conference at E3 2020, the game lovers of the universe are going to scream deafeningly. At this point, we will all have already played the Final Fantasy VII remake, or at least the first part of however many parts it is. There will be so much screaming about old games that it'll make many people, myself included, as cynical as we are eager to plunk down some cash. And is that it? There's just a long list of PlayStation 1 games that I owned on my PlayStation 3. My PlayStation 3 was a luxury party of unloved masterpieces, such as Cheap Poke Rarafu no Daibouken, Tomba, Harmful Park, Rakugaki Showtime, there's like 20 of them on here, all lounging around on my PlayStation 3's pristine patio, enjoying a fresh George Foreman grilled chicken cutlet with half the fat of a traditional skillet. I don't even know if chicken comes in cutlets, to be perfectly honest. I am not an expert on poultry, butchery, geometry. However, I am an expert on a lot of other things. And that was some of them. I was born stupid, however, I will not die hungry. Video games forever. Kotaku.com. That's it. Oh, rolling. I'll do a couple of these stretches here. Let everyone see this. I stand up and I do these a lot. in my little office. I'll put this at the end of the video so you can watch. Just, you know, you get up and it gets your, just a little chest stretch at the end. It's like doing a push-up for like a mosquito, basically. It's like a very light chest stretch, gets the blood going. If you've ever been like sitting at your desk for a long time, I realize I haven't done this in about a couple hours. Keep it like even with the middle of the ribs. Just try this, it's good. It's just the kind of video content that I should be making. You didn't expect to see exercise tutorials here. Okay, I'm gonna get started now. Hello.